Well, okay, here we go. We're starting. As always, Rachel, coming to you from my office / guest bedroom. I was looking very workout chic before, but then I felt like I had to match Michelle. So I look like beach chic now. This is what you get. So I'm gonna let Michelle introduce herself. We'll be talking about coronavirus, of course, in senior living communities, what we can do, what people are doing, what the future looks like, yada, yada. Michelle.
Thanks, Rachel. I have collaborated with Rachel on several projects, and my name is Michelle Tristani. I'm a memory care specialist, and I've been working with the older adult person living with dementia and families for 25 years. So I'm happy to be here to have this conversation with you, Rachel.
Yeah, thanks for coming to my show. Because this is a tough topic. I feel like I just keep seeing articles and everything, and I've kind of held off doing too much about coronavirus online because I feel like people are just sick of hearing about it. At least I am. I feel like every restaurant I've ever been to, I've gotten an email from telling me what they're doing about coronavirus. And it's like I'm getting emails from North Carolina, like a restaurant I haven't been to in 7 years, being like, here's what we're doing. And I'm like, what? Yeah. So everybody's just so overwhelmed. But I think in senior living, people are terrified. They don't know what to do, and families are coming up with really creative ways to visit their loved ones through windows and various other methods. But
video chats,
video chats. Thank God for the internet. But you were one of the first people I talked to about this really early on. We talked about masks. And obviously you have to defer to the company you're working with or where your loved one lives. But one thing that I've had people ask me, well, how do we get our residents with dementia to wear masks? And I'm like, good luck with that one.
Right. I mean, sometimes a resident can wear a mask. It depends on the resident.
Sure.
My main concern when we started wearing masks a couple of months back was we're masking our greatest feature. Our smile is truly our greatest feature, and it's so powerful. So when we take that away, it's very hard, particularly for someone struggling with interpreting their environment, to make sense of the nonverbal communication, because your facial expression is really the bulk of nonverbal communication. I mean, depending on what you read, right, it states either 60 to 90% of what we communicate is nonverbal. So what do we do to come up with ways to compensate when we do have a mask on?
Right.
It's the best thing that I've seen, actually, is there's two things that I've seen that are really great. Someone takes a selfie or an 8x10. It's got to be at least a 5x7, 8x10 color photo headshot of themselves, and puts it either laminated or in a sheet protector and tapes it to their PPE, their gown. Some people have even pointed an arrow up and said, "This is me." So that's a great, and the person in the picture, when you're taking your photo, you have to be smiling, hands down.
Yes.
Smiling and humor can really help with this.
You had even said early on, like for the staff, perhaps they could, when they're 6 feet away, pulling it down and saying, like, I have a cold, so I'm wearing a mask, which I thought was great, because trying to explain, I've had families ask me, like, how do I explain to my dad that there's a pandemic? And I'm like, I barely understand. What? No, you're not going to sit there and be like, well, Dad, you got to wear a mask because this is what's happening. And it's like, no, the human brain really, that's a lot to comprehend, especially if your short-term memory isn't really there working super well. that's going to be a challenge. So I really liked I have a cold, that's why I have this, and then putting the mask up. And that's way more reassuring than being like, there's a pandemic going around. Like,
definitely. I mean, words like
ugh.
flu, bug, I have a cold, I didn't get my flu shot this year. That type of thing is, I think, can still really resonate with mild cognitive impairment,
Oh
early
yeah,
stage dementia, maybe even early to middle stage dementia.
sure. Yeah,
And
I
that,
think everybody can understand. Like, I think when we grew up being like, cover your mouth when you cough. If you're sick, don't go to work, So I think that anybody, even in those later stages, if they can still kind of process what it is that someone's saying, can understand, okay, this person's sick. They don't want to get me sick. Okay.
yeah.
And I think that there's something very human and normal about that. So
Yeah,
I
and if
really
you're outside
like
of
that.
6 to 10 feet, you should be able to pull the mask down and say
I think so.
exactly what you just said about a flu or a bug going around. I just want you to be
Mm-hmm.
protected, and then put it back on. I've
Yeah.
seen some of, I don't know if you've seen on Facebook, Rachel, some of the masks that distort the face a little bit. It's kind of like a
Yeah.
huge smile or a dog face.
Yeah. Creepy.
Cute. They're cute, but they do anything that distorts the face and looks
Mm-mm.
a little freaky may be difficult for a person living with dementia, and could confuse people a bit more.
I actually heard years ago that one of the reasons, I'm not afraid of clowns, but one of the reasons people are terrified of clowns is not just because, like, Stephen King, I mean, he's a genius, right? He plays on what he knows people are already afraid of. Um,
Mm,
and one of the reasons people are terrified of clowns, supposedly, is because it's a distortion of the human face. But that actually makes a lot of sense, right? Like,
so
humans
true.
we're very pattern seeking people. And so we look for things that makes sense to us. You're always kind of looking for
Yeah.
like a human face, like a human form and things. Remember when eBay first became popular and people would just like find like a Dorito with a face on it and then you could sell it for like $1 million? There's something about like seeing a human face that is, is really important. So yeah, I
Hmm.
think wearing a mask with like a bunch of like a dog face drawn on it would be like, what the, in some
Yeah.
circumstances fine, but if you're working with people with cognitive impairments, I think would be like, what the heck am I looking at?
Right.
Right? Like, what is
Right.
that? Yeah.
And coming into a room, especially doing, can you imagine doing an evening hourly check,
Mm.
just a discreet check to make sure that someone hasn't fallen or they're not hungry or that they need to use the bathroom? And this,
You're wearing like a dog face, like
no, that's going to create more of a negative reaction
oh
than
yeah.
anyone would ever want. They're
Weird, weird.
adorable, but I wouldn't do it when it comes to dementia, for sure.
No. So the mask thing, being able to pull it down, being able to say, I have a cold, um, having a picture of yourself on it, I think is great. I've also seen ones where there's like plastic or something clear over top of the smile part, which I think
Yes,
is great, especially if somebody's hard of hearing, um,
definitely.
for them to
Yeah.
be able to like read your lips, because that's,
The
yeah, a
best
huge
one
part
I've
of it.
seen is theclearmask.com. Now,
Theclearmask.com.
yeah, that's the best one, because there's a line at the nose and then there's a line under the chin, and the rest is clear. You really can see the face. Now, it depends on
Yeah,
the approval of your organization, or if you're caring for a loved one at home. There's no reason why you couldn't wear that at home.
right.
But checking with physicians, and definitely checking with your organization if you're working in a larger skilled nursing facility, organization,
Mhm.
or an assisted living, checking with them, because there is some evidence that the cloth masks, for example, versus the procedural surgical
Mhm.
masks, uh, the cloth masks are more permeable, they're more porous. So we have to just be careful in that realm and make sure that the organization that you're working for approves of it before you use
Right.
it.
Right.
As far as nonverbal communication, that theclearmask.com is the one that I've seen that's the best one.
That makes sense to me. I mean, it's jarring, I think, even especially when I'm a little more used to it now, but I had to go buy a mask that fit kind of around my face, because when I got a mask from a friend that she had made, she had sewn it, and it's comfortable. It's like a really pretty mask, but it kind of goes up kind of high. So I found myself dropping things. Like my my perception was completely off. So I bought a mask that kind of like goes around the bridge of my nose and comes up and kind of cuts underneath my eyes. Because I was like, wow, even just having something on my face is messing up my ability, my depth perception.
Not to mention your breathing.
Not to mention my breathing. Right. And you're already like, especially when you were first grocery shopping, with the mask on, it's already kind of stressful. And then you're like, like trying to breathe through this mask. Yeah.
And then those of us with glasses, there are some ways that I have seen that help to defog or to prevent fogging, but the fogging is quite difficult on our eyesight.
Yeah,
I'd love to assess blood pressure and vital signs, heart rate and vital signs pre-mask and then post-mask.
Right. To see what people are actually like feeling in their body from having a mask on.
Some of the other things that I found that work well, we find that comprehension of single words and phrases stays with us throughout the dementia progression. So why not have a whiteboard and write down some messages, as long as the person that you're communicating with is able to understand single words, short phrases, short sentences, using that mode of communication, written communication, even when you're trying to exaggerate your body posture, your gestures to compensate for no smile and half your face, then they're really able to understand it better if you're writing it down too. So that's another good idea that we had some success with.
Yeah, I think that's it's a good plan. We talked a little bit about hand washing before we started recording the call. And you had actually made some videos to show people how to best hand wash with individuals with cognitive impairments. For many, actually, I found that people living with dementia, even usually into fairly moderately advanced stages, can still mimic very well, and they can model behavior. So, I've done exercise routines with people living with dementia, and they can follow along perfectly. Same thing with the hand washing. But you have a video for people who they're past that stage. They're not able to model. They're not able to follow a model anymore, and really need that hands-on hand care for washing hands. So we're gonna check that video out. Yeah.
Sure.
Screen. So if you're listening to the podcast version of this, we'll just talk about it as we're watching it.
And I'm going to make it a little bit bigger for you. As you've mentioned, many of us are still able to imitate and mimic. And you can see here, washing side by side really can help. The World Health Organization procedure and steps can be followed to almost an exact degree. And the other thing that I've found with this is not only singing, but putting music on can also help. Putting music on and washing to the beat, if you will, can certainly help.
Right. And who doesn't have their phone in their pocket, like at any given moment?
Right.
So
and putting on a song that is a preference for a person living with dementia would be great. A lot of people say happy birthday, but that's going to get pretty boring after a while.
Yeah, right, exactly.
The assisted hand washing. So this is more for someone who is at moderate to middle stage dementia, maybe late stage dementia, and that person needs really someone who is total assist for activities of daily living. So using the hand under hand technique, as you see here, and putting pressure in the palm of the hand is comforting. And again, using music to assist with this. For some reason, I am thinking that with this version of hand washing with middle to late stage dementia, you want to use a slower beat of music or sing something that's a little bit slower cadence.
That makes sense.
Yeah, the first video, you could probably have it be a lot faster. I've worked with a respiratory therapist in the past who said, Michelle, it's not about the temperature, it's all about the friction. So the friction being a fast movement can definitely help with hand washing. And making this part of our routine. If you're working in a memory care neighborhood, having this be part of activities and part of programming is huge. And then if you're at home, making sure that you're doing the hand washing on a routine basis. Again, sharing a moment and connecting with your loved one during this time, either talking through or singing a song, again, a song of preference. We all have that song that we don't want to sing that's like nails on the chalkboard for us. But you can see here there's a collaborative effort, and the washing, the amount of lather created by the friction is also key per some of the research.
I think in a lot of scenarios, like this is a situation where people are trying to explain to their loved one, like, there's a pandemic, we can't. And the person with dementia is like, but why? Well, why? Or they're driving
and that logic is
the logic is not working. So they're driving their loved one bonkers. They don't mean to, of course, but the person's at home going, well, I told you yesterday, we can't go here because of the pandemic. And they're going, what are you talking about? Right. And so it's such a hard thing. And then because I think, the minute this started happening, I'm thinking, oh crap, like you've got all these caregivers professionally and family who are going to be completely overwhelmed. And then some unexpected, potentially positive outcomes of, wow, he really can't do these things. He's not doing it. He's not, defrosting a chicken in a cabinet because he wants to be frustrating. It's because he didn't understand he needed to put it in the freezer.
And it gives, I think it gives the care partner the ability to more blame the diagnosis.
Right. Blame the disease.
Separate the diagnosis from the person.
Right.
And exactly. And with this, you bring up a good point, because really knowing the person that you're assisting is huge. Knowing specifically how they coped previously, in times of distress, in times of challenge, how did they cope? Some people pray, some people sing, some people exercise, some people have wine.
Some people do all those things.
Right. Definitely. So knowing how someone coped before is probably going to work for them now, or at least that'll give us a list of where to start.
Right.
How can I help this person cope with this change in routine, in being isolated from a lot of other people who they're used to being around?
Right. And Pennsylvania specifically is, I said before, we're in the, well, not all of us, most of Pennsylvania is in the yellow phase now, which things are starting to open up a little bit. We can have slightly larger groups, which I think is great for, dementia and then just aging in general is incredibly isolating for a lot of people. And, just loneliness is such an epidemic. And then when you're adding the fact that, there are some people who really don't get out anyway, but now they can't get out. Or you have guys who, like, I know some older gentlemen whose entire like week revolves around like every morning waking up, going to McDonald's, sitting there and having their cup of coffee with their other guys. And that's what they do. And then they can't do that anymore. And so like even those like little things that I think we all kind of go, oh, just a silly little thing that he does every week. He goes to McDonald's. That was his whole day. Like that was what gave him life. And now he can't go there right now. How can we help this person have some semblance of life, especially when, like, if they're living in a senior living community and they're being told, well, you can't leave your room. How do we?
And people with normal aging have there's down in Rhode Island, there's a great coffee shop called Brewed Awakenings. And I know a bunch of normal aging, mildly cognitive, impaired individuals who meet at this coffee shop, like you said, McDonald's. They meet there every morning.
Yep.
And Brewed Awakenings is closed at this time. Or they may have just opened. It depends on which phase we're in. But
yeah.
A couple of the guys would go to Dunk's, get their coffee there, and then go sit outside at Brewed Awakenings. So,
I mean, you gotta do.
We're creatures of habit.
Well, and I think it forces you to be creative. Go, okay, well, how can I keep doing this? And for a lot of families, how can they keep visiting? I love it because when this first happened, I put out an article that was all about like, how do you call a loved one with dementia?
Oh yeah, I listened to that. That was good.
Thanks. My thing was like, sometimes the answer is don't, because you'll get some families who call and they're like, Mom, it's your daughter and this is what's happening and the blah blah blah. And it's like, ooh, let's not do that. And the woman's on the other end of the phone going, what? Like she's hard of hearing or she's not able to process, and she's going, wait, what? And then you have some people who call their loved one all the time. And my general message was like, if they normally have phone conversations with you, great, keep calling.
Absolutely.
But don't over explain. Don't call and give a whole rundown of what you saw on the news today. It's not going to be helpful. Yeah. And at that time I was like, well, this will be like 2 weeks, and of course 2 weeks turned into like 3 months.
Sadly.
Yeah. And I had one woman who reached out to me in particular, and she always visited her husband in his assisted living community. And she was like, well, what do I do? Is he going to resent that I'm not there? And I was like, no, like, no. And I said his ability to understand time isn't really working, right? And she said, yeah, he doesn't, I visit every day and he'll be like, you haven't been here for a week. And I said, yes. So, and if you could be there, you would. So it's not like you are sitting there at home being like, I'm not going to go,
Right.
So to not beat yourself up about it. But I think every community in the country is still not able to receive visitors, right? I don't think I've seen anybody.
Yeah, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, we are not. I
don't know about, what about like Georgia and Florida, because they're like open. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if it's like a.
Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling though that those of us who have not opened to visitors will probably wait until the later stages of opening.
I would say so.
Because the vulnerability of the population.
So we talked about masks, we talked about hand washing, we talked about visiting. And yeah, I guess the prediction is, right, like as things start to open, senior living will probably just wait a little bit longer past that.
I think so.
And then I have a feeling that there's going to be a capacity for visitors, or like a sign-up sheet for visitors, so that you don't have everybody's family in there at once. Is probably going to be
Yeah.
what it is. Although honestly, that's not such a bad idea to begin with.
Yeah, and then reception can have that list.
Yeah.
There's that service Sign Up Genius that I know some people are using for video chats, where you can just go on, and if you have the link, you go on and you sign up for whatever time slot is available, and that works for you, and you'd be all set. I think that's definitely one of the priorities as we start to reawaken from this. There's probably 5 different priorities, I think, and social connection being a huge portion of it. Routine, trying to get a sense of that routine. And of course, physical exercise, having a walking schedule, physical exercise, even using a stress ball, you know, those little globe stress balls. It's nice to be able to have that. Doing exercises at certain times during the day to a specific song that a resident may have requested is a fun activity as well. And then of course the vitamin D benefits, the outside. We have to get outside. We have to have that feeling of free at last.
I think people need to be outside. I read something on LinkedIn the other day, like, oh, well, this community isn't letting people outside. And I was like, wait, but why outside? Like, that seems like an overabundance of caution to me. Like, I think being outside is the thing we should be doing, because
absolutely,
doesn't the virus travel better inside? I mean, like, I get you don't want, visitors coming up and like hugging people while they're outside, but like, I think being outside is the way to go. If there's like a deck or like somewhere people can
courtyard,
sit.
or even any what I've, in my discussions with senior living professionals, any door that leads to a grassy area or even a concrete patio, anything where when weather permitting, let's go for it. Let's get out there. Of course, now, if someone is positive or someone is negative COVID, we have to follow those pathways probably through the community. If you're COVID positive, you only follow COVID pathways, doorways. And if you're negative, you only follow negative. So it's kind of like that game Rush Hour, where you have to get the little red car out of the maze, and it's kind of like a maze, a matching maze. But it that can really mitigate the virus, but also balance it with the fresh air opportunities that we have out there.
You gotta go outside. Yeah, I mean, there was one day this entire time where we didn't go outside at all, and it was because it was pouring. It literally rained all day. And so we didn't go outside at all, and it rained hard. It didn't just rain like a little bit, because we've been outside when it's been drizzling, because we're like, screw it, we're going outside. But there was one day where we didn't go outside at all, and it was cold. It sucked. It was probably February and or like March, when it was still freezing, and it was bad. Like, it was a bad day. I felt really depressed. I mean, I was like, oh, this is terrible, just because it was like, oh my God. I mean, it's especially at that point where it just felt like endless. You were like, I'm not even seeing.
I'm pretty sure I remember those couple of days, definitely, that you're talking
maybe it was the same days. I don't know. I've had a few of those, but
it had to be.
We're just like, there's no, like, where's the light at the end of the tunnel here? Like, I can't get out. I got to get out of here. We've been taking a walk, pretty like 50 to 60-minute walk, pretty reliably every morning.
It's amazing what you can find at this time of year. There's a lot of birds' nests, robins, and then new families of birds being tracked.
And new flowers. I mean, there's and people are out now, like, so that you can kind of say hi to your neighbors. Being able to get outside in whatever capacity that means, I think is
and wear a mask if you feel like you're within 6 to 10 feet of anyone.
Right. I have
Then you
seen
can,
people power walking by themselves with masks on, and I'm like, okay, I think you're probably
or
okay.
worse, driving
Yeah, I
alone.
see people driving with a mask on, and I'm like, what do you think is happening? And also, like, I just feel like that would really obscure your, I don't know about, like, I feel like, you ever, if you have cats, you ever put anything on a cat? Like, if you put like a hat on a cat, they act like suddenly they can't move their body. That's like me wearing a
Yes.
mask. I get a mask on, and I'm like, I suddenly like have no peripheral vision. Like, I don't know why.
Yeah, it totally throws the whole system off.
So driving wearing a mask, I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, somebody asked me for I was walking, and a woman like pulled over and was asking me for directions. She had her mask on. She had to pull her mask down and asked me for directions. And I'm like, she's like 25 feet away in a car. I'm like, what?
Yeah, a bit over the top.
It's a bit over the top, which I think kind of comes back to the like risk benefit analysis. Like truly, how can we keep people safe? But also, how can we keep people healthy beyond not catching coronavirus? Like, where's, the line that we draw? And I've seen senior living communities come up with some really creative engagement ways, to reach people and to do programming. Because, so yeah, what are, you're working specifically with people, like groups of people living with dementia. What are they doing? Because you can't stop people
Well,
living with dementia from like,
in most dementia neighborhoods, we still will have small groups, socially distant, 6 to 10 feet apart, groups of 2, groups of 4, I would say max. In assisted living, a lot of assisted living communities are doing hallway programs, and we can do these in memory care as well. A lot of fun contests like paper airplane contests to measuring the distance down the hallway.
Yeah.
I've seen a couple of communities in the Midwest doing remote control car racing in the hallway. A lot of fun.
I had
and then there's also the rolling cart, not just the bar cart, but any themed cart.
Yeah, themed carts
throughout the community. Lot of fun that has themes, either a theme of a library cart, a music cart, a humor cart, gardening. That can definitely help. But even in memory care, having those new experiences can really add to quality of life.
Yeah.
And as Paul Rayo has always said, quality of life until end of life. And that's what we have to be about.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, you're going to have a really hard time if you're trying to keep people living with dementia from like walking down the hall or doing, you can't be like obstructing. I had somebody say, well, what if Rachael, how do we keep people with dementia out of each other's rooms? And I was like, you don't.
No.
Well, what if somebody has coronavirus? I'm like, okay, well then you probably have to keep the door closed and you have to keep them isolated from other people. But other than that, it's the same as it always has been. You don't. Like,
one of the beauties that we've had with memory care is we take everyone working in the memory care neighborhood, and if you have a person living with dementia who's in distress, what would it do to their day if everyone working in the memory care neighborhood signed up for 10-minute visits? 10-minute visits with the resident on a staggered rotating schedule. And they had, if you have 7 visits, that's 70 minutes of engagement time. And of course, we would have to know the resident profile. What is that person about?
Right.
What are their values, beliefs, coping mechanisms, as we talked about before? And what a great opportunity to do that. I mean, COVID is cross-training at its best. So we all have to, it's teamwork at its best. So we all have to know how to connect on a deeply human level.
Yep. Yeah. With this training that I built, I'm putting it out there so that, a whole team can go through that, because I've had
The
companies
school.
say,
You're talking about the school?
yeah, that's my Dementia by Day school. They're
Yeah,
like, who is this for? Everybody. Because
definitely.
everybody who works in dining, everybody who works in management, everybody who works with the care staff, like everybody's engaging with the residents or with their families on some level. So why shouldn't everybody have the same base level knowledge of dementia? But a lot of times it's just like,
Definitely.
oh, well, the care staff needs training. No, everybody
Everyone.
does. Like, this isn't just like the same thing with, we talk about programming, like the same thing with programming. People are like, well, that's just for the activity director. And it's like, no, everybody helps with that all the time,
Yeah, and it's the area of fun, and who doesn't want that?
I think and a lot of times I meet companies who are like, well, our care staff is going to push back. They're not going to want to do programs. Sure. One, that should be in the job description, but two, once people start doing the programming, they're like, oh, this is, one, not hard, and two, this is fun, and I'm not changing an adult brief right now. I'm hosting an ice cream social, right?
Yeah, I'm making someone laugh and smile.
Right.
I'm keeping the neurons connected to one another, keeping that neuroplasticity going.
Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to think of anything else we should mention. Oh, I did have somebody ask me, like, well, do you think this is going to stop move-ins? And I said, no. And I talked to a company the other week, their sales team, and one woman on the phone on the sales team said, I had a family say, I'm going to wait a little while longer. I'm trying to take care of dad at home. I think it's going to be fine. Called like 2 weeks later and was like, never mind. This is really hard. As soon as you guys are admitting new residents, I'm going to try to transition him. And I think I've had families say, well, I'm so glad my loved one's at home with me because they're safer. Like, communities are overwhelmingly doing a really good job with this. I think senior living is getting like, oh, well, senior living, like they're, the cause of the problem. And it's like, no, this is just happens to be the most vulnerable population. And in particular, nursing homes, skilled nursing facilities have an incredibly vulnerable population. So it's not the fact that like they're doing not the right thing. It's just that you have a lot of aging, sick people in one spot.
Right.
You got to look at like people forget about, correlation does not equal causation. People forget about when they look at numbers, they think like, oh God, and it's like, look at, that was drilled into me in my undergraduate psychology statistics courses from like day one. Correlation does not imply causation.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because people see like a number and they go, well, this number means this. And it's like, actually that number could mean a lot of different things. Like there's a lot of variables when you look at why something is happening. You know what I mean? There's not like one cause. Senior living is
right. No,
the reason is like,
and it's amazing the people who have stepped up during this pandemic.
I've actually heard good things. I've had families say to me like, I'm really glad my loved one's in a community right now. So I've heard just about every side of of the whole thing.
Yeah, it's amazing the amount of positivity that has come out of this, despite its catastrophic outcomes. There is positivity that people have really tied themselves to.
People are resilient. I think there's a lot of
that's a good word too.
In humans, not everybody's resilient, but a lot of people are resilient.
Yeah.
And I think you have to make a choice at some point if you're going to keep fighting whatever it is that you're fighting, or keep doing whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, you could have a couple days where you don't do anything at all and you sink down into a deep hole. You can do that, but then you need to get up one day and say,
definitely rise up.
Yeah.
That's it. I've had enough.
I've had enough of whatever this is. Right, exactly. Well, I'm sweating my butt off because I have the fan off now. So, do you have any last things? I'll stop the recording and then, you know, we can keep talking, but I'll turn the fan on. So, do you have any memos, any last things to say to?
No, I think just that continue to work as a team and train one another on human connection, on making a deep connection with each person living with dementia. And as we start to move forward with this and reopen and reawaken, we start looking at things like, how do we make hydration part of the day? How do we make it and ensure it is something that is a priority? How do we make physical activity? How do we get that back on track? And also, how do we help people to keep their goals in check?
Yeah.
If their last wishes, if their bucket list includes 3 last items, how do we make that happen even as we move out of this pandemic?
Yes.
So we have to keep on keeping on. We got to keep pushing forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
Together.
Well, thank you for being on my podcast / YouTube video today, Michelle.
Thank you.